Welcome back to my channel. This is the long-awaited part 2 of Tsukiyama Hanahaki disease. Before I start the video, I would like to say that I'm so thankful for the new subscribers. I took a little break from YouTube, but when I came back I noticed how I have 600 plus subs. Thank you guys for supporting me. A little warning before the video begins: I looked through the comments and saw majority of them were for a sad part 2, so I made a sad part 2 instead of happy. But for the people who wanted a happy part 2, just let me know if you want another ending where it's happy instead of sad. Anyways, sorry for the hold up and please enjoy. Tsukiyama laid in his hospital bed. He felt empty. Like he couldn't find the motivation to feel anything. He just had his surgery a week ago and he was finally able to have visitors, not that he expected anyone other than his family to come. He was surprised that he didn't die. After the surgery, the doctors told him how he only had a 1% chance of actually surviving the surgery, seeing how the flowers already took over his lungs. But no, here he was alive and barely making it. He stared out the window completely emotionless. He heard the sound of footsteps walking towards his room, but he couldn't find the energy to see who it was. The door opened. The room slowly filled up. Not moving an inch, the new guest watched as the blonde didn't spare them a glance. "Tsuki!" yelled the green-haired boy in a soft tone. Tsukiyama finally looked over towards the door. He saw his teammates staring at him with pity in their eyes. Stop looking at me like that." That is what he wanted to say, but he couldn't open his mouth. Maybe this was his body telling him to finally be quiet for once. He was thrown out of his thoughts to something falling onto his body. He looked down to see the freckled boy on his knees next to the bed. The boy was sobbing as he held onto the blonde's hand. An outburst of "sorry and forgive me" left the boy's mouth. The others watched the pair, not knowing whether to stay or leave. Tsukiyama's mouth opened. He started to talk. The first time in a week. "Why?" His voice came out weak and frail. Everyone stood there looking at him until Yamaguchi questioned the blonde. "Why what?" Tsukiyama felt angry. He felt anger pump through his veins. Why are they here? I don't want them here." He thought before his breathing picked up and he found himself yelling. Why are you even here? Tsuki. No. I don't want you here. Tsukiyama. Get out. Get out. Get out. He started yelling. The heart monitor picked up as his hands shook. "Tsuki? I don't want to see any of you guys," he said as tears fell. He hasn't felt any emotions for a week, so now all his bottled up feelings were coming out. He shook his hand away from Yamaguchi. Yamaguchi tried to grab the blonde's hand. "Tsuki, please." Tsukiyama screamed. "Don't touch me." The scream echoed the once quiet hallways and room of the hospital. Tsukiyama moved towards the edge of the hospital bed. He curled up with his face in his hands as upsetting sobs left his mouth. Everyone in the room stood there shocked. They never saw Tsukiyama like this before. Before anyone could do anything, doctors rushed into the room. The doctors practically pushed everyone out of the room. The team stood in the waiting room. They were still in shock with what just happened. I never saw Tsukiyama like that before." The others nodded in agreement. It was quiet until a loud sob and yelling could be heard from the room they just left. "Where's Kei?" The team looked over to see Tsukiyama's family rushing over towards the reception desk. Yamaguchi walked towards Tsukiyama's mother. "Mrs. Tsukiyama," he said softly. The older woman looked at the pitiful male before her. She gasped. "It's you." Yamaguchi flinched at the harsh tone. "How dare you show your face here? When you're the reason Kei is in the hospital in the first place." Yamaguchi's eyes filled with tears. He didn't let them fall. His watery eyes looked towards Tsukiyama's mother. "I never meant." Slap. The loud and harsh noise filled the waiting room. "Don't you dare act like the victim." Yamaguchi's head was tilted towards the right. The slapped skin was flaming red. The rest of the team gasped at the sight. Sugawara rushed over. "Mom." Just as he got towards Yamaguchi, the doctors rushed out. Tsukiyama's family rushed over, leaving the team and Yamaguchi. They only heard part of the conversation. Fine. Home." They watched as Tsukiyama's parents and brother thanked the doctors and walked into Kei's room. Yamaguchi walked towards the doctor. Excuse me, miss. The doctor looked at him. Yes. I would like to know if Tsukishima K was alright. The doctor smiled at him softly, eyes full of sympathy. I can't tell that information to anyone other than his family. Yamaguchi frowned before thanking her, about to take his leave. The doctor looked both ways before leaning forwards. But I can tell you that, Mr. K is going to be free to leave the hospital soon. Yamaguchi smiled softly at the woman. Thank you. The doctor gently nodded before walking away. What did she say? Yelled the orange-haired boy. Hinata. This is a hospital, you can't yell. The ginger gasped. He whispered out a soft sorry. She said that Tsuki would be free to go soon. That's great news. Yeah, we can have a surprise apology and welcome home party. Yamaguchi nodded. I hope he forgives us. He lowered his head. I hope he forgives me. He thought before the team and him left the waiting room. The gym was filled with the squeaking noise of sneakers running around. Loud yelling was filled through the gym. He said green balloons. Not blue. He said blue. Stop acting like such a boke. The two bickered while tugging the balloon string back and forth. Yamaguchi softly walked over. Both balloons are fine. The two looked over. Hinata saluted the green-haired male. Okay. He said before running off to put up the blue balloons. Kageyama looked at Yamaguchi before running after the human tangerine. The third years quietly talked among themselves while they put the snacks onto the table. I hope Tsukishima likes this. Yeah, as an apology and as a welcome back party. I still feel bad for not noticing how sick he was. The three lowered their heads. Sir? He's here. The lights flickered off. Just as Tsukishima walked into the gym, the lights flashed on. Everyone screamed surprise. The blonde showed no emotions as his eyes glanced around the dinosaur-themed gym. Yamaguchi ran up towards the clearly unamused beanpole. Tsuki. We're all sorry and we wanted to show you how much we want to make it up to you. Tsukishima scoffed, barely glancing at Yamaguchi before turning around and walking away. Yamaguchi ran after the blonde. Tsuki. Tsukishima stopped walking and stood there with his back towards Yamaguchi. It was almost laughable when the rain started to pour from the sky onto the duo. Tsuki, please. The blonde turned around and faced Yamaguchi. I love you, Tsuki. I'm sorry it took me so long to realize this. He said as he walked closer to Tsukishima and held the blonde's hands. I'm so sorry, I never meant to hurt you. Tsuki, The green-haired boy lowered his head as a soft sob left his mouth. Tsukishima looked at Yamaguchi, not an ounce of pity in his gaze. I'm sorry too. The freckled boy looked up confused. I'm sorry, but I don't feel the same anymore. The freckled boy's eyes widened as he collapsed to his knees. The blonde-haired male walked away from the saddening sight. I wish you the best life, Tadashi. He said before walking away, leaving the crying boy. Just as the blonde-haired boy crossed the street, everything slowed down. It was as if this was a movie. Yamaguchi looked over with his eyes widen. The truck was speeding towards Tsukishima. Tsuki. He screamed as he ran towards the road. But he was too late. The truck hit the blonde. Crash. The loud noise could be heard even through the harsh rain. On impact, the blonde's body flew. Yamaguchi watched as the barely conscious male's body bent in an uncomfortable angle. He wanted to run over but he couldn't. He watched as the male's body bled. The blood surrounded the male. With shaking limbs, Tsukishima lifted his frail and weak hand. Goodbye, Yamaguchi. He whispered before his eyes closed. A week later. The team stood there. The rain fell onto their heads. They watched as the Tsukishima family cried, staring at the decorated tombstone. They watched as Tsukishima's father hugged his sobbing wife. The Tsukishima family walked away. The sight was too much for them. After nearly losing their son the first time, they thought that they saved him, but now they couldn't save him. Tsukishima was dead. Yamaguchi walked over. Tears threatening to fall. He looked at the tombstone. Here lies Tsukishima K. He was truly loved and cherished. May he rest in peace. Pronounced dead, December 5, 2020. He laid the bouquet of roses onto the tombstone. I love you, Tsuki. He whispered. I love you so much. With a deep pain in his heart and trembling hands, he lowered himself onto his knees to be face to face with the tombstone. I'm sorry. He softly chuckled. Sorry isn't even enough to gain your forgiveness. Yamaguchi let out a soft breath. You saved me from everyone who wanted to or ever hurt me. You were almost like my guardian angel. I'm so sorry that I couldn't be yours. I'm so sorry that I couldn't save you. He wiped the stray tears from his eyes and softly smiled. You were my soulmate. I just failed to notice. He said as tears fell more rapidly. Maybe, in the next life I could be your angel. Getting up, he turned around and walked away from the tombstone. Ignoring the calls from his team, ignoring the ache in his heart, ignoring everything, he left the ceremony. He walked and walked, just wanting to start everything over again. Arriving at his house, he sat down on the soft bed. He stared up at the ceiling. Goodbye, Tsuki. Please be at peace. With that final thought, he let his eyes drift close and let the darkness take over. Thank you for watching this video. Sorry for any editing or grammar errors. I didn't rewatch this video before I uploaded it because I wanted to rush to get this video out. Also, it's hard for me to notice my own mistakes. Anyways, I hoped this video didn't suck and that you enjoyed.